Alright, Fright fans and retro rumble enthusiasts, welcome back to NES Chronicles. Your pal here is ready to dive headfirst into another pixelated peril from the golden age of gaming. Now, you might think you know your way around the NES library, but tonight we're venturing into a realm of shadows, jump scares, and a villain so iconic he'll have you checking under your digital bed. That's right, folks. Tonight we're strapping on our virtual running shoes and trying our darndest to stay awake as we tackle LJN's 1990 masterpiece, or should I say, unique interpretation of, A Nightmare on Elm Street for the Nintendo Entertainment System. For those of you who grew up in the late 80s and early 90s, the name Freddy Krueger probably conjures up images of razor-sharp gloves, striped sweaters, and a serious lack of personal space in your dreams. The Nightmare on Elm Street movies were a horror phenomenon, a terrifying blend of slasher tropes and surreal dream logic. So naturally, when the NES adaptation hit the scene, expectations were, well, let's just say they were there. But hold on to your power gloves, because this ain't your typical movie tie-in. Forget Nancy Thompson and the gang. In this pixelated nightmare, you take control of one of four generic teenagers who are all experiencing the delightful phenomena of Freddy invading their sleep. It's like a slumber party gone horribly, horribly wrong. Now, the gameplay here is, well, it's a side-scrolling action platformer. Think Castlevania meets, a really bad dream you can't quite remember the details of. You'll be navigating the sleepy town of Springwood, jumping across platforms and battling a bizarre menagerie of enemies that seem to have wandered in from entirely different games. We're talking about bats, snakes, skeletons, and those weird little gnome thingies. Seriously, Freddy's Dream World has some seriously eclectic inhabitants. And where's the razor-gloved maniac in all this, you ask? Patience, my friends, patience. Freddy doesn't just pop up and say boo, though that would have been terrifying in 8-bit. Instead, he operates on a sleep meter. As you wander through the levels, this meter fills up, and when it's full, bam, the world around you shifts into a darker, more surreal vision, and suddenly those bats and snakes are a whole lot more aggressive. Oh, and guess who just might make an appearance? That's right, Freddy himself. And let me tell you, encountering him in this game is less of a strategic boss fight, and more of a frantic, oh crap, run away type of scenario. He'll jump around the screen, swiping those iconic claws, and generally making your digital life a living nightmare. And the worst part? You can't directly attack him in the dream world unless you've collected a Dream Warrior power-up. Talk about feeling powerless. The sleep mechanic, while interesting on paper, can be a bit, shall we say, unpredictable. Sometimes your sleep meter fills up faster than you can say don't fall asleep, and other times you'll be wandering around and wondering if Freddy took some NyQuil. It definitely adds a layer of tension, but it can also lead to some frustrating moments where you're just trying to platform your way through a level and suddenly, bam, Dream World. Good luck. Now, let's talk about how this stacks up against other NES horror titles. We've had some genuinely creepy games on the system, like Castlevania with its gothic atmosphere and Monster Mash, or even the surprisingly unsettling Friday the 13th game, another LJN gem for better or worse. But A Nightmare on Elm Street feels different. It leans less into the traditional horror atmosphere and more into this bizarre, almost surreal action platforming with a horror skin slapped on top. The level design is, well, it's standard NES fare. You got your forest, you got your junkyards, your, suspiciously clean looking sewer. It doesn't quite capture the claustrophobic dread of the movies, but it does offer a decent variety of pixelated environments to traverse. And the enemies, while often feeling random, do keep you on your toes. Who knew a pixelated dog could be so menacing when you're half asleep? Another interesting thing about this game is the power-up system. Scattered throughout the levels, you'll find items like coffee that keep your sleep meter down, boomboxes to wake yourself up from the dream world, and 3 different Dream Warrior tokens, which finally let you go toe-to-toe with the Dream Stalker in his own twisted realm. You have the acrobat, which allows you to move faster with a flying somersault and throw javelins. The necromancer, which allows to flow down slowly while in the air and shoot magic projectiles. And the absolute GOAT, the Shadow Warrior. The Shadow Warrior is by far the most powerful Dream Warrior. You not only get to throw shurikens to hit enemies from a distance, but when you jump, you'll automatically do a jump kick that will damage any enemy you make contact with. Now let's delve into the nitty-gritty. A Nightmare on Elm Street for the NES was developed by Rare, a name that should ring a few bells for you retro gaming aficionados. Those are the folks that brought us classics like Battletoads, Donkey Kong Country, and GoldenEye 007. So you know there's some serious talent behind this pixelated madness. It was published by the infamous LJN, a company that, well, let's just say their track record with movie tie-in games is a bit spotty. But hey, at least they gave us this wonderfully weird piece of NES history. Also, while the game doesn't directly follow the plot of any specific movie, it definitely draws inspiration from the overall themes and imagery of the Nightmare series. The idea of teenagers being targeted in their dreams, the surreal environments, and of course the ever-present threat of Freddy. It's all there, albeit in a very NES-ified way. Alright, now let's talk about the difficulty. A Nightmare on Elm Street on the NES can be challenging to say the least. Those random enemy placements, the unpredictable sleep meter, and Freddy's relentless attacks can lead to more than a few game over screens. You're gonna need quick reflexes, a good understanding of the level layouts, and maybe a strong cup of coffee in real life to keep up with your digital counterpart. It's definitely not a game you can just breeze through on your first try. Prepare to die. A lot. In your dreams and in the game. Visually, the game is, well, it's the NES. The character sprites are decent, although our teenage heroes are a bit on the generic side. Freddy himself is recognizable, albeit a bit blockier and less menacing than his cinematic counterpart. The Dream World sequences do have a darker color palette and some interesting visual distortions to differentiate them from the Awake World, but it's not exactly going to give you nightmares, unless you're particularly scared of flickering pixels. The music and the sound effects are classic NES chiptune. The main theme is a surprisingly catchy rendition of the Nightmare theme, albeit a bit more upbeat. It's like the game is trying to be scary, but also wants you to tap your foot along to the music. The sound effects are your typical 8-bit fare. Jumps, attacks, and the occasional digitized screech that's supposed to be Freddy, but sounds more like a dial-up modem having a bad day. So, what's the final verdict on A Nightmare on Elm Street for the NES? Well, it's certainly a unique and memorable experience. It's not a faithful adaptation of the movies, and it can be frustratingly difficult at times. However, it's also a fascinating example of how developers tried to translate a complex horror concept into the limited framework of an 8-bit side-scroller. It's got its moments of tension, the power-up system adds a layer of strategy, and let's be honest, there's a certain charm to battling a pixelated Freddy Krueger as a ninja. It's definitely a game that stands out in the NES library for its sheer oddity. It's not a horror masterpiece, and it might leave you scratching your head wondering what exactly you just played, but it's a piece of retro gaming history that's worth experiencing, if only for the what were they thinking factor. If you're a die-hard Nightmare on Elm Street fan looking for a direct adaptation, you might be disappointed. But if you're a retro gamer looking for a quirky and challenging action platformer with a horror twist, then this just might be the nightmare fuel you've been craving. So, have you braved the digital dreams of A Nightmare on Elm Street for the NES? What are your thoughts on this unique take on the franchise? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always curious to hear your retro gaming stories and memories. And that about wraps up another deep dive into the NES Chronicles. I hope you've enjoyed this trip down the shadowy, pixelated streets of Springwood. If you did, then you know what to do. If you've enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to NES Chronicles, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss another retro gaming review. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep running, keep jumping, and keep gaming. I'm out.